Man, their hormones were absolutely peaking by the time we got in there. I got 3,000 women screaming so loud I can't even hear the music. So I'm standing there and I'm just like, I just hear, "Ah!" And I'm just like blown away. I was shocked and I just froze. Holy shit, Steve got arrested. I remember walking out of his office and slamming the door so hard, man, I thought it was going to break. 99% of them were all gay. One or two in the whole 10-year career were straight.
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
So when I was leaving for the office this morning, I asked my wife if I had any bow ties.
Oh, bow ties. It's funny. I've got an old Chippendale poster. I'm in my parents' guest bedroom, and you can see the poster behind me there on the wall by the TV. Chippendales. My mom had put it up there years ago, and it's funny. You know, she hangs all her kids' movie stuff. So I've got my sister's movie banner right back there. That's The Harvest. That was the movie with Miguel Ferrer where they met and fell in love. And then my little sister, she's on the wall back here. She's the Bikini Babe, and she was one of the Diet Pepsi and girls.
Celebrity family. And I was going to, start with bow tie and no shirt. As embarrassing as that could be, but I couldn't find a bow tie. I couldn't find it. If I would have thought ahead, I would have had the whole thing for you, waiting for you.
Well, I'll have to find this. It was a YouTube video. And there was a host over in the UK, and it was really funny. He did we went in early, we taught him a Chippendale routine, and he went ahead and did it with us. And then he had the muscle bodysuit underneath his clothing. So when he took off the shirt, he's got all the muscles and everything standing there with us. I'll have to send it over to you. You get a kick out of it. It's a really cute routine. Everybody I've sent it to, they're like, I never saw that. That's great. The host did a great job. So what
about Patrick Swayze versus Chris Farley?
One of my favorite Saturday night routines. It was really good. Certainly made me laugh. We still get a kick out of that today after all these years, you know.
You see, he's athletic and whatever. You're flabby. Jeff Stearns, connected through cars with my good friend Victor Roman, referred by longtime friend and Wall Street financier Izzy Reich. So I've been watching, and now I'm long past watching the Welcome to Chippendales show on whichever app on the TV. And I'm talking to Izzy, and I said, I'm watching this really interesting show. And I'm not like hung up on Chippendales dancers, but I'm really addicted to this miniseries that's on about, I knew nothing about the background. And Izzy's like, are you kidding me? I know an original dancer. Hang on. And then he puts us on a call and, amazing. So that's one of the beautiful things about doing these recordings is being able to meet some fun people. And of course, you and I have had some great private conversations. So regardless of the interview, I have a lot of admiration for you and your heart and your soul already. I think you're just a sweet guy, just a doll of a guy, what you care about and what you came from to come to where you are now. But let's talk about how the movie did you see this show that I'm talking about?
Yeah. I was actually a consultant on a couple of them. And then, much to my surprise, they took some of the vignettes from the various shows that I was in. So I've got my friends and family calling me whenever those shows go up. They said, hey, I saw you on TV the other day. And I'm sure it was one of the Chippendale shows. I know Discovery did one. There was a couple of other. It seems like there was 2 or 3 documentaries going around, and it was just nice to see that the one I saw on Discovery Channel actually hit the nail on the head, and it was the whole story. And ironically, you think the whole story is going to be about the Chippendale guys, and all the while it was about the owner and how scrupulous he was. And all the while, I worked for this guy for 10 years and hadn't a clue. He and I got into some heated battles. And to think or to find out later in 1990. I think it was 94, that he actually put a actually hired an undercover FBI guy to go out there and inject the Chippendale guys that left his show and went to work for a competitor. He wanted them dead. I couldn't believe it.
So to kill them.
To kill them. That's exactly right. And then, of course, he was arrested and put in jail, and he was looking at a 30-year sentence. So he tied up one of the bed sheets and apparently did a Jeffrey Epstein, and it was successful.
Right. Well, except he really killed himself. So you worked with, is it Steve Banerjee?
Yeah, Steve Banerjee. Met him in early 80s. And a good buddy of mine had gotten a job over there. And heck, I wasn't even 21 years old yet. And my buddy Dean had gotten a job there, and his birthday was a few months earlier than mine. And he was a host. So he says, "Hey, come on down at 11 o'clock. And I'm like, "What do I want to see a bunch of guys for?" And he goes, "No, after the show, they let all the guys in. And there's 1,500 drunk, horny, crazy women in there." I said, "Really?" So it just took one time. Of course, when you go in there, yeah, you need to get there early because that line went up around the block. And these guys were just dying to get in. But I'd say for that first hour or two before all the guys got in there, it was a field day. It was a wonderful situation. These women had been sitting around for the past 2 hours, knocking them back and watching the show. And man, their hormones were absolutely peaking by the time we got in there. So it was one of the funnest clubs to go into at about 11 o'clock.
Oh my God. Sounds perfect. And what year would this be?
82, 83.
Okay. Early 80s. Okay.
Yeah. Early 80s. Yeah. So we would go in there and we were having a good time. And I think it was such a fun place to go. I went back there pretty regularly, like on a Friday, Saturday night. I think it was the second or third visit in there. I ran into Steve Merritt, who was the chief choreographer. We struck up a conversation.
Now, this is pre-Nick Denoia?
I think Nick was running the New York stuff at that particular time. So I knew about Nick. He was alive, and they were doing business. Steve was not happy about it. I remember being on tour, and man, he'd always bitch about it. You know, it was said, done, and over. And, I remember him saying, "God damn Nick Denoia had me sign over the touring rights on a napkin, and I didn't know what I was doing, man." You know, I remember him telling me that. And I said, "Well, Steve, he's doing all the work.
But he couldn't be happy that it was making him money."
That's what I told him. I said, "He's making all the money and just doing all the work. I mean, he's actually, you're making money and he's doing all the work." So I didn't understand Steve's problem. I kept looking at him. I'm like, so you got some guy who's helping to build your brand, who's actually paying for the show, legitimately paying you, not trying to steal anything, and you got a stick up your ass.
Very, very interesting. Now, the show that I just watched, what was it on? Hulu? I don't know. But did you see the most recent one that I'm talking about, or you don't know?
I've seen a few of them.
It's like it's new in the last year.
Right. So what happened?
Well, I was going to ask if the way they depicted what was going on with Banerjee and Denoia, if it was how much artistic license and how much reality. I mean, not that you could read minds what was going on or what was going on in people's houses, but Banerjee's wife was by trade a CPA or an accountant, right? Or a bookkeeper. And did you know her?
I knew her well. She was a great gal. I remember on my very first tour, I remember telling you how I auditioned for Chippendales and ended up getting a spot. There was probably 3,000 guys that wanted the spot. And what I didn't realize is once you got the spot, they actually put you into cuffs and collars and would actually line you up with the other guys in the club. And then the MC, Reed Scott, would go down the line and put his hand over each of the guys' head. And that applause, the guys that got the most applause would actually be considered for the tours. So not only did I have to audition to become a host, but I had to audition again to be, one of the top candidates. So, I started doing some thinking because I'm barely 6 foot on a good day. And I certainly wasn't, very muscular at the time. And sure, I had some dance skills, but unless you were, 6'2" plus with, 200 pounds and bulging muscles, I kept thinking to myself, man, how am I going to get these women to vote for me?
Okay, and
Well, I noticed early 80s, right? They would take all the ladies' Kodak Instamatic cameras and they would take the cameras and throw them in a big basket. So there were no cameras allowed. So I remember being a host and I remember hearing the women bitch about it all the time. They're like, God, I wish I had a photo. I wish I had this. I wish I had that. And of course, they'd go to the merchandise booth and it had some crappy little T-shirts and some crappy little calendar with the guys. It was just crap. So I thought, pictures, and I started thinking about it. And I remember at one point, some gal had snuck a Polaroid camera in and she asked me to take a picture. And that kind of gave me an idea. I thought, well, shoot, man, I should be doing this myself. So I ditched the spandex pants. And of course, inside the club was kind of dark, so nobody knew what I was wearing. It just saw black pants, and I had very deep pockets in these pants that I swapped out for the tight-fitting spandex pants. So I went across the street to the store. I bought a Polaroid camera and 20 rolls of film, stuffed my pockets, and went to town. And I'm shooting each picture, making $5 a shot. So I'm making somewhere between $750 and $1,000 a night cash just for shooting pictures. And the irony was the guys were so oblivious to what I was doing. I would actually throw the camera to them, take a picture with me, or I would literally get them to pose in the picture because it was all fun. And they had no idea I was making bank until I went out and bought a brand new Mustang convertible and I had money and things were good. And this carried on for a couple of weeks. And then I got a call from Steve Banerjee. He says, the club manager, David at the time, he says, hey, Banerjee wants you in his office. Sounds pretty important. So I go to Banerjee's office, which was right there in Santa Monica. I go walking in and he's, I've been there before and he says, hey, shut the door. He never asked me to shut the door. And I'm thinking, all right, this is supposed to be important. I sit down and he goes, how do you like your job? Of course, with that Indian accent. How do you like your job? And I said, my job's great. I love it, man. I'm having fun. You're right. Lots of fringe benefits. The women are nice. The show's great. I didn't realize how good the show was because it was choreographed from top to bottom. And here I thought it was just some cheap nightclub act, but it was my first experience to see the show top to bottom, and I actually liked it. And he says, yeah, I heard you're doing better than me. And I'm like 20 years old. I'm looking at him. I'm like, you own Chippendales. You got.
How can I be doing better than you?
Yeah. How's that possible? How's that? If I'm doing better than you, then man, you got to screw loose. You're doing something really wrong because I could make $1 billion if I own this thing. And he says, yeah, I heard you're snapping a lot of photos. He goes, I want you to teach the guys how to do it, and I'll give you an override. So that's kind of how our relationship kicked off. And I'd given him a lot of ideas for merchandise, man. Calendars, wrapping paper, keychains, notebooks, address books, you name it. We put that Chippendale name on everything, and pretty soon he was in Spencer Gifts. He was a national brand, and he started making a lot of money. And of course, he thought by giving me my own room and allowing my wife to travel on the road with me and giving me a little spiff here and there, that was going to cut it. And all the while, I was getting the raw end of the deal. But then again, I was traveling and seeing the world with my wife at the time, and we had our own room. And, with 20, 25 other guys on the bus and not being able to get that benefit, Steve and I had a good relationship. Did he pay me all the money I had coming to me? No. But he also provided an opportunity that most people never get. So a little bit of a trade-off.
Talk about life experience. Now, you came after, and I don't remember the guy's name from the movie, but the original partner who came up with the idea, who was fiance or married to Dorothy Stratten.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Now, Roger Monash could tell you all about that because he was around during that time. But he used to bring the Playmates used to come down to the club all the time. In fact, Hef would sit in the front row with the girls, and he would have a great time. He's in there with 12, 13, 1,400 women, and he was right at home. He really had a good time. We rolled out the red carpet for Hef. He came with his limo with his beautiful girls. He'd bring half a dozen to a dozen of them with him every time.
Oh, my God. But you were after Dorothy Stratten.
Yeah, I'd say that.
The one who got killed.
Yeah. She got killed. I remember all that happening, and yeah, I think I come out around Chippendales. They had just come out with room service. My buddy Kevin Kirchen had starred in that, and Dorothy was in that video. So I came on right after that.
Now, you'd mentioned a calendar. Were you in the middle of the conversation or involved or a witness to all of these with the same number of days in the months, like that whole debacle that's in the movie?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was, Steve unfortunately had so many plates spinning and he didn't really know how to delegate authority. And sure enough, man, the printer had sent over the the calendars after I talked him into spending more money and let's take this thing to an exotic location because, here he was shooting his calendar in Venice Beach and it just looked mediocre, right? It was nothing more special than the postcards you see at down there by Venice Beach. It's just kind of cheesy. And I kept telling him, you got to put some money in this thing. Let's go to Bali. Let's go to Tahiti. Let's go somewhere exotic. And he kept telling me, no, too expensive, too expensive. But I'd always accused him of being a dollar, dollar foolish, penny pincher, dollar foolish. And sure enough, the printer came in one day with the proof. And he had handed over the proof and said, okay, we're going to print up 1 million of these things, or a couple 100,000 in the first run. Go ahead and sign off on it. Well, every calendar there had 31 days. And Steve signed it. And I remember coming into his office, we were talking about merchandise one day. I had a meeting with him. And he says, oh, man, you're not going to believe what I did. And when he told me, he's like, do I file bankruptcy? I mean, he was really...
So how many, back up. How many calendars were incorrect date, 31 day every month? How many?
Well, I don't know what the print shop was going to do for a first run, but it was a big load. I know it was a couple 100,000 because we were selling calendars like crazy. We had a couple of national tours, a couple of world tours, and then we had a club in New York and a club in LA. And when the touring groups, we'd actually grab a whole stack of these things, they had boxes of 100. I remember going through a box before every show, like it was nothing. And we always had 2 or 3 hosts walking around the audience with a merchandise guy selling calendars. So, when you're doing a show it was very unusual to see any of the women walking out without a calendar. I mean, that was almost the must-have.
Okay, but when you're talking about filing bankruptcy, I'm just trying to figure out what kind of bill he's trying to avoid, because he was making money.
I think he was committed. If I remember correctly, he was on the hook for like 1 million calendars, or 1 million or 2 million. It was a lot
at more than $1 cost per copy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So we'd have to go back in there.
All right, so that's a bankruptcy conversation. All right.
Yeah. I mean, these were the things that I went through with Steve over the years. Sometimes it was really good, and sometimes he was stressed to the nines. And I remember we went over to London. He decided to make a Broadway play out of it. They took the tip and kiss portion out of the show. So when we were in Europe from 1990 to 1994, that whole tip and kiss thing, come up, kiss the dancer, that was out of the show.
All right, tip and kiss. For those of us not in the industry, this is the chick gives you a tip and they get a kiss, right?
It was actually 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes after your number. You're stripped down to your tea back, and you got 5 minutes. Those women coming up the stage, and they were usually 5, 10 deep, man, waving money. And you literally go around that stage like a typewriter, just snap up all the kisses. And ironically, my wife was sitting there with a hefty bag on the far side of the stage, and I would just go down the line and throw the cash. Go down the line and throw the cash. And my wife was real smart. She goes, hey, strippers up front with big bills, go beeline over there and kind of do my thing. But it was 5 minutes. And after the 5 minutes, you had to get off. And then, of course, the next dancer would come up. So the guys never left the stage, but the women would come up. Now, they got rid of all that when we went to Europe. And because
why is that?
We had a 25-foot orchestra pit between us and the women, and we had a live orchestra in there. So it was just, we're in a theater, we have balconies. There's just no way to make that happen. No way. So we'd actually have some numbers that where the women would actually come on stage. We still did that, like the cop number and various numbers where we brought them up. And we just put them in a chair and we do the whole routine.
Now, when you're only, I'm sure, a quick peck, when you're talking about tip and kiss. Who knows what the other guys are doing, but your wife is there. And even if your wife wasn't there, you're married. So, you want to do the right thing. Did she have any issue, or did she know it was all business?
My wife was so pretty, 5'9", blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, she was the calendar girl, and everybody loved her, and she just had such a warm, loving personality. It was funny because she'd come up and do pictures after the show. She was actually one of the photographers. So she's banging the Polaroid film. We had 4 or 5 groups across the stage and like 10 guys, and we had multiple lines, and these women would just come up there and, they make a bloody fortune because they charge 5 English pounds for those pictures. And sometimes the exchange rate was 2 to 1. So, it was a good moneymaker. But her name was Sandra, and she was incredible. And no, she didn't get jealous. I never really gave her a reason to get jealous. She's traveling with 25.
But she never, after a show at the hotel, said, Victor, you could have went a little easier with the, broad in the blue dress. Nothing like that.
You know what? I got lucky, man. And you know what? I'm far from perfect, man. I had an unbelievable wife, and I take the blame for that marriage kind of going sideways. Somebody forgot to tell me. Well, they didn't forget to tell me. I just forgot to put it in practice. They said, hey, if you invest 5 minutes a day in your marriage, you get 5 minutes worth of marriage. And, having been divorced twice now, I understand it's a commitment. It's a daily commitment, and takes a lot of work, and I wasn't ready. And I was a bit of a workaholic. So 2 marriages went south, but ironically, I'm still good friends with my ex-wives.
Well, that's a testimony. Okay, I was definitely curious about that. Now, he was out in New York, so you never interacted with Denoia.
No, Nick, our tour would go by there from time to time. So we'd go into the club and we'd go party with the guys. So, yeah, I saw Nick, and he was always nice. He was always nice. He was a business guy. He was a typical New Yorker business guy. And all the guys liked him. Michael Rapp and Dean Mamelies and Joseph Morrow and all the guys that used to work in New York. They never had anything bad to say about him at all. And he was the one that organized the tours and really kind of got that part of the business going. So here, I really had a hard time understanding why Steve had a problem with it, to be quite honest. But it's the same stupid mentality. He was just really jealous, man. And I didn't realize how much it affected him until, I remember in 1994 when I found out about it. We were in London. We're all laying around the pool, and one of the guys was reading one of those Enquirer magazines, man. And they're like, holy shit, Steve got arrested. And I was like, what? Completely oblivious. And this is a guy I had multiple, heated discussions with over pay and, getting my wife on tour and all this kind of stuff. I remember walking out of his office and slamming the door so hard, man, I thought it was going to break. And we were just having, it wasn't personal. It was just business. But all the while, I had no idea this guy would, think to put a hit on something.
But he was a nutcase. Well, they portrayed anyway on the miniseries that he was a nutcase about the recognition piece. Who was the founder? Who was behind it? That's really what was making him crazy, right?
Yeah, he wanted all the glory. Didn't want to share the spotlight. And he felt by Nick having, I can't help but feel like he kind of figured that Nick had hands on his purse strings. That he was having to share the fame, and that didn't go over well with him. He wanted it all for himself, and
it was important for him to be the boss.
Yeah, and all the while, again, here's a guy with that small thinking mentality. I run into it in business. These guys don't see the big picture. Had he just kind of opened it up, but it was his inability to think big. He was stuck in thinking small, and everybody around him was thinking big, and he felt like it's kind of like a short man complex, right? Shortest guy in the room, and he was going to teach everybody a lesson, and much to his demise. completely.
Well, yeah, obviously. And his wife was Irene.
Irene Banerjee, yeah. Yeah, she was actually really, really a great gal because remember when I told you when I went out on tour originally, I was going out and there were a couple of guys that were veterans. And of course, when I got out there and, we went through the whole choreography and I thought everything was fine, but I got up there on stage the first time and I got 3,000 women screaming so loud I can't even hear the music. I'm actually standing there and I got 4 backup dancers dancing around me and I can't really hear anything. But of course, the dancers count the music, right? So even if if they can't hear it, they know where they're going. But I wasn't that trained. So I'm standing there and I'm just like, I just hear, ah! And I'm just like blown away. I was shocked and I just froze. And the guys are going by me going, start taking your clothes off. Watermelon cantaloupe, I forgot my lip sync. I forgot the lyrics. I forgot the beat. I forgot I was just.
Now, explain to us, what's watermelon cantaloupe?
Well, if you say watermelon cantaloupe, looks like you're singing the words, but you're not singing the words. Watermelon cantaloupe. Because all the pro dancers, I mean, they all came from like the Michael Jackson tour, Janet Jackson. I mean, did all the MTV stuff. They've been on camera. They knew exactly what they were doing. They made us look great. I love the backup dancers. They were amazing.
Were they a lot of gay guys?
I'd say there were 99% of them were all gay. Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that in a judgy way. I'm just saying if they're in the dance business, there's a lot of that a lot of that. So
yeah, I think one of the backup dancers that I remember, maybe one or two in the whole 10-year career, were straight. And the funny thing was, some of the guys you least expected, it was kind of I hadn't really been around gay guys my whole life, and then here I'm on a tour bus with quite a few of them. They all sat in the front of the bus. We all sat in the back of the bus. So what happens is we pull into a new town, and it's really funny. Of course, they're the first ones off the bus. They go in. By the time we get to the front desk, those women were convinced, are you guys all gay? And we're like, why would you think that? And we started putting 2 and 2 together because all the guys got off the bus first. And when they got off the bus first, they got the best choice of rooms, right? So they got the pick of the room. They had a gay guide. They had this big, thick book. And no matter where we went, mind you, this is pre-cell phones, pre-internet, pre-all that. So we didn't know where to go, what to do when we got to town. So the guys had a gay guide. And it was probably that thick. And it had every club, dress code, hours of operation, who's the manager, the whole thing. So, but when these guys rolled into town, I'm asking the lead dancers, right? I was like, well, so what are you guys doing tonight? Nothing, just going to sit around and watch TV or maybe go to the gym. It's just boring. These guys had a limo pick them up. They had VIP service. They had dinner reservations. We go to the club. We had a roped off section. Sure, they're gay clubs, but I had my wife with me, right? What did I care? So my wife and I, we got the VIP treatment. And then, of course, we get back the next day and I'd see the guys at the show the next night. And I'm like, hey, what'd you guys do last night? Oh, we went out to a club and dinner. And my wife always loved going out with the gay guys. Loved it. They were fun.
Well, they're the most fun. No doubt about it.
Oh, they are. We had a great time. So I went out with the gay guys and my wife most of the time just because it was fun.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay. Now, in the movie at the beginning, and I know you were on tour, so you may not have been exposed to this, and maybe this was too early, but they also showed that after shows, a lot of these women ended up backstage, like in the dressing room or whatever. And I don't need it to get graphic for this show, but, getting pretty graphic.
No, we'll keep it G-rated. They were just excited, they were just excited to be around it, and it was electric. I mean, the atmosphere was absolutely, it was funny. When I'm out there selling calendars, right, pre-show, you're wearing your spandex pants, your cuffs and collars, and you got your calendars in your hand, and, I'd get out there and sell a box, and it was great because a lot of the women were so shy, it's like, oh my God, I've never been to the show before and I'm embarrassed to be here, and I don't want to see anybody. I don't want anybody to know I'm here. But it was funny because we had a first act and a second act. So we had intermission in between the show. And it was crazy because these women, some of the most shy women, right? I'm a school teacher. I've never even been to a show like this and blah, blah, blah. Come intermission, man. She's winging that bra, standing on top of her chair, screaming and hollering. And I'm like, it transformed women. It was great. You know why? Because it was the only place in town that a whole group of women, a whole theater full of women, could get in there, have some drinks, and do whatever they wanted without any guys bothering them. Women, they go to a club, they try to have a good time. You know what it's like. You've probably seen somebody, they get a VIP table and you got a bunch of vultures hanging around and they want to, and inside Chippendales, anything went and whatever they wanted to do.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.